Okay, today, guys, welcome back. We are going to learn all we need to know today about circles. So, of course, you know there's going to be a fancy song. So I'm going to go ahead and play the song and probably sing a little bit with you. And feel free to join in when you have the tune down. Ready? Here we go. Oh, I'll start from the beginning. The circle, it knows how to get around. It has a radius from center to rim. From there's a radius. And its diameter's a line that goes from side to side. There's a diameter. Through the center. Now isn't that simple? Pi r squared sounds like area to me. When I need circumference, I use pi d. Pi r squared sounds like area to me. When I need circumference, I use pi d. Oh, we aren't done yet. Here is a circle. It knows how to get around. It has a radius from center to rim. Radius right there. And its diameter's right there. Now isn't that simple? Pi r squared sounds like area to me. When I need circumference, I use pi d. Pi r squared sounds like area to me. I use pi d. Bum, 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 bum. Okay, now hopefully you have that tune in your head because you're going to hear me say that beginning part a lot today. So I know you're excited about that. So you have a sheet in front of you. It says area and circumference notes. In the top left-hand corner is all our notes that we're going to need for today, our vocab. So starting with pi. So we have talked about pi a lot this year, the fact that it's an irrational number. But pi actually in math is just this sign right here. So go ahead and write that sign down. And you know from looking at the wall, it's a really long number. But for what we need, we're going to memorize just 3.14. In fact, when you're using your calculator, I never ever want you to use your pi key. The reason for that is because if you use your pi key, you're using like the first 6 digits. It's 3.1415. And when you calculate with that many digits, our answers aren't going to match because we're going to basically be rounding all of our answers and they'll round to a different number. So it's very important when you type in pi into a calculator that you only type in 3.14. It is kind of, if you think about this, I'm sure you all have eaten pies. At least I hope you have had a piece of pie in your lifetime. Pies are always circular. And so the only time we use pi is when we're talking about circles. It's always kind of funny to me after we've done stuff with pi, people will do like triangles or squares or trapezoids, and they'll try to use pi. But it's impossible to use pi unless you're dealing with a circle. Okay, second word that you need to know is what a radius is. Radius is half way across circle. So it starts in the middle and goes to the outside edge. That's what a radius is. So I'll draw a picture right there. Halfway across circle. You can also put must touch the middle. Has to touch the middle of the circle. Much touch, I'll put center. Center of circle. Okay. Second word is diameter, and this is all the way across circle. And again, must touch the center. So this is going to go like all the way across and it's going to touch that center point. That's what a diameter is. Okay? And then circumference is literally the distance around the circle. So you've walked across, so most of you have probably walked around Lake Ripley. If you wanted to say that was 4 miles, you would say the circumference of Lake Ripley is 4 miles. Because when you walk around the circle, that's what circumference means. That's what you're measuring, is that curve. I remember all of these. Radius is the shorter word, has less letters compared to diameter. So radius is the halfway and diameter's all the way. I also remember that circumference is a distance around the circle, because if you make a C and you keep going, you almost got around the circle. So the formula that starts with a C is going around the circle. Hopefully we do remember we're going to need the area formula too. Area actually measures how many squares inside the circle. All right, so now we're going to do the first thing. It says we're going to find the circumference of the circle. Now, when we do area and circumference or anything at all with shapes, I am going to demand you write the formula first. We all know why. There's two big reasons. One, we will memorize it and we will have to quit looking at those posters, because I never have to look up how to find the area or circumference of a circle. If you write it as much as I have written it, you'll never have to look up either. So that's number one, but number two is actually more important. The more important thing is it makes you accurate, and I like you to be accurate. So I'm always going to expect the formula. Underneath the formula, you're going to substitute the numbers in, then you're going to grab your calculator. So that's going to be the process which we do every single one of these questions, okay? So circumference of the circle, we're going to go ahead and we're going to write what that song said. Remember, when I need circumference, I use pi d. So it's C equals pi d. So you go ahead and write that in your first blank on the top right. So it says formula for circumference. Perfect. Now we're going to substitute the numbers in for the variables. So we don't know the circumference, so we just leave that blank. But we always know the number pi is 3.14, so go ahead and write 3.14. These two letters right here, pi and d, are shoved together. So we're going to go ahead and put a times sign, because shoving together always means times. And then the thing you have to look at is you always look at your picture. So I'm looking right here at this picture, and ask yourself, do they give you the D? And of course, D stands for diameter. So when you look at this picture, is the 5 a diameter? 5 is all the way across. Diameter is a long word, so yeah, 5 is the diameter. So literally all you do is under the D, you put a 5. Now you grab your calculator and you calculate it. And what is the answer? Hopefully you got 15.7. Now we have to talk about labeling. So 15.7 what? You can see you're measuring, when you look at this, they're measuring this in meters. So when you go around a circle, you are also measuring that in meters. So your label is just going to be plain old meters, not meters squared, because circumference does not count squares. It's literally going around the circle. So when you look at this, if your circle is straight 5 across, going around the shape is going to be about 3 times bigger, which is 15.7. So that's a really good way to estimate too. You know pi is about 3, so you should be able to say, well, the diameter is 5, the circumference should be about 3 times bigger, because no matter what your diameter is, you're always taking it times 3.14. Alrighty, so now we're going to do another question just like that. It says find the circumference of the circle. So we are in the second row on the left-hand side. And circumference, I'm not going to fight it. I'm just going to write it. I'm just going to write the circumference formula. We're going to go back to that lovely song. When I need circumference, I use pi d. So you're going to go ahead and you're going to write that. And then number substitution means you're going to put numbers in for the formula above. So you don't know the circumference, that's what you're trying to do, but you do know pi, and so everyone underneath the pi is going to write 3.14. They're shoved together, so we put a times sign, and then we do the D. Now we are not going to get tricked here. You're going to look at the shape, and you're going to say, is for a diameter. Hopefully you remember that diameter is the long word, but this is not the long length. So therefore, we cannot put the number 4 up in the D because 4 is only halfway, which remember is a radius. So if the radius is 4, halfway is 4, I'm looking for all the way across. How are you going to figure that out? Raise your hand. Hopefully you said you double it, right? Because if we need the whole way across, you have to double that number. So 4 and 4 make 8, or you could times it by 2. So you put in 8 for diameter. All right, go ahead and calculate that and raise your hand. Hopefully you guys got an answer of 25.12. And if we can go, let's see if that's reasonable. If all the way across is 8, and pi is really close to 3, 8 times 3 alone is 24. And do you see how your answer is close to 24? It's actually 25. All right, and then what do we label it? Well, it's measured in meters here, so circumference is just literally meters going around. Okay, so this one, they took the picture away from us. They just gave us words. It says, how big is the diameter of a circle if the circumference is 9.42? So we see the word circumference, which we know we have to write the circumference formula, and I'm hoping you all are singing this in your head. When I need circumference, I use pi d. So that's going to be your formula that you write down. C equals pi d. All right, and then number substitution, this time they actually give us circumference. So under the C, I put 9.42. And we always know what pi is. Pi is never going to change. Pi is 3.14. But the question's asking for, what's the D? Well, thank goodness we know how to solve equations. So I need to get the D alone. I put my line down the middle. If I need to solve for D, I'm going to do the opposite. To get the D alone, I need to get rid of this multiplying by 3.14. So the opposite of multiplying by 3.14 is to divide by 3.14. And remember, whatever we do to one side of the equation, we do to the other. So go ahead and use your calculator. Calculate this side, 9.42 divided by 3.14, and raise your hand. And hopefully you got the answer is 3. So your diameter would be 3, and it would be still measured in the same, 3 meters. Okay, so now we are going to do finding the area of a circle. Remember, when you're finding the area of a circle, you're really doing this. So if here's my circle, I'm actually counting how many squares are inside, because that's what area means. So we really need to understand what each of these measures. What we measured in the three previous questions was we went around the circle, measured from like here all the way around, like walking around a lake. But now we're measuring the inside in how many squares. So, we are on your worksheet that you're supposed to be copying on. We are on the third row, first one that says area of a circle. So on the song, it says pi r squared sounds like area to me. That's it. So we're going to go ahead and use pi r squared. That's your formula for area. So you can put equals area or area equals. It doesn't really matter which side that goes on. That's your formula. All right, number substitution. So we're looking for the area. We don't know it. Nothing goes under the A. We know pi is 3.14. We go ahead and put that there. We know these are shoved together, so we do times. And now we have to look at the shape. Looking at this shape, the R stands for radius. We have to analyze, is that the radius or not? Radius is a short word. Is that the short length? Yep, it's halfway. That's what a radius looks like. So you don't have to change the numbers. You just go 3.1, 3.1. Now, this squared gets a lot of kids. A lot of them, people think that means times 2, and it does absolutely not. A little exponent of a 2 means you need to write your radius twice. So I will actually write times 3.1 times 3.1 again, because exponents means write the number twice. You'll make way less mistakes if you do that. Some kids will write this. They'll write 3.14 times 3.1 squared. Technically, that's not wrong, but most kids do not type that in their calculator right. Their brain will go 3.14 times 3.1 times 2, and that is not the right answer. So when I do it, you're always going to see me write that same radius twice. Okay, go ahead and calculate that and raise your hand as soon as you get an answer. All right, that answer is big, isn't it? So we're going to go ahead and round these. So we'll go 30 point, let's round to the nearest hundredth. So let's go to the second spot past the decimal. You can see it is 175, and the 5 is high. So we'll go ahead and round that to 1/8. So let's get used to, we'll just round these to the nearest hundredth. Sometimes the directions say nearest tenth, but you rarely round to the nearest thousandth. So it's either usually tenth or hundredth that you'll be rounding to. And label is super important. What is 30? 30 what? And what you're really talking about, we're talking about area, so it's not straight meters. It's actually a meter squared. What that means, it's 1 meter long by 1 meter wide square. That would be like this. Here's 1 meter by 1 meter. The square is how much space this takes up. It would be 30 of these squares. So it's very, very important that you label it meters squared. Also, never ever do this. Some kids will go, oh, it's 30.18 square meters. And they put the little exponent of a 2 next to that number. Now that means 30 times 30, which is not the answer at all. So if meters squared, the squared has to go after your meters. So make sure it's not after the number. Okay, we are on the third row on the box on the right now. It says, what's the area of this circle? So pi r squared sounds like area to me. So you go ahead and write that. Pi r squared sounds like area to me. All right, and then number substitution. Pi is really easy to substitute for. We always write 3.14, and then it's times, and we now need to write the radius. But before you get too excited, you need to look at your picture and ask yourself the most important question. Is that thing a radius? If you remember, radius is a short word. Does that look like a short length? It doesn't look like a short length to me. So how are you going to figure out what halfway is? If the whole way is 9.4, does it make sense to you that you would just take the 9.4 and divide by 2? Go ahead and do that now. And you should have gotten 4.7. So your radius is only 4.7. Don't forget though, the formula says you need to write your radius twice. So I'm going to write times 4.7 again. Beautiful. I have my 4 numbers in, and at this point I grab my calculator, and can you raise your hand as soon as you got it? And the answer is 69 point, I have 36, and the third number is a 2, which is low, so it's literally going to stay just a 36. Careful on our labels. So we have meters, so we know it's meters, but since we're talking about area, we are measuring squares, and so the label is meters squared. All right, so this is a question more like you would see on an MCA. They're not just going to ask you a basic, what's the area of a circle, what's the circumference of a circle. That's too easy for you guys. So they're going to always, of course, give you in some kind of word problem and ask you to figure something out. So this question says, if a bike tire has 24-inch diameter and it goes around 500 times, how far would you travel? So before you do the question, you have to decide, is this an area or circumference question? I'm actually going around this bike tire. So I'm measuring the around, which is going to be your circumference formula. So since we're going around, so it's pi r squared. Sounds like area to me. When I need circumference, I use pi d. Bum, 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 bum. All right, so we got our circumference formula because we're going around this bike tire, and we're going to substitute numbers in. So pi is, again, of course, 3.14. We know that. times, we look up in the thing and see, do they give us a diameter? Well, they're sweet. They do. They give us a diameter, and it's 24. So the 24 is going to go under the D. All right, well, if you calculate that, would you do that for me right now? I'm assuming you got 75.36, because that's what I got. Okay, there's only one problem with that. That is the bike going around one time. That's the circumference of the one circle. So you need to do something more. This is going around once, and you can see the question says you're going around 500 times. Does it make sense that you're now going to take your one time times that by 500 to get your total answer? Go ahead and calculate that right now. Times 500. And I am getting 37,680. And of course, what unit? Well, you can see we're measuring in inches. So that's a lot of inches, but it is going around 500 times. Okay, this is the last question. It goes in that bottom box. You're going to put fertilizer on a circular garden that has an 8.5-foot diameter. How much should you buy? So this is very typical of an MCA question. They don't tell you what you're trying to do. They don't tell you if it's area or circumference. You have to figure all that stuff out. So you're putting fertilizer on the garden. So do you think when you fertilize a garden, you only fertilize this outside edge? Or do you think you put fertilizer on all of the grass? If you said all of the grass, you are right. So if we're going to fertilize everything, that's the area inside. So I need the area formula. And it goes pi r squared, sounds like area to me. Love that song. I hope you do too. So we got it down. A equals pi r squared. The number substitution under the pi, you're going to write 3.14 because that's what that means. Times, and now we're going to look at R, and we're going to be very careful. The one thing they love to do is mess you up. So make sure if they want an R, they give you an R. If they want a D, they give you a D. On this formula, I need an R, but look what they gave us. They gave us a D. They gave us a diameter. So diameter's all the way across. So raise your hand if you can tell me how to find the R. And you are right if you said just cut it in half or divide it by 2. And if you do that, you get 4.25. But let's not get tricked. We're not done with the whole formula. That's 1 R. And you can see in your formula you need 2 of them. So you write times 4.25 again. So that's your formula. Go ahead and take a second now and calculate that. And I'm getting an answer of 56.71, but the third number is a 6, so I'm going to round up to a 2. And then I'm going to look at my label, and it would be feet, and we're talking area, so feet squared. Now, I'll be honest, this is how much formula you need to buy, but on an MCA test, they're going to go much farther in the question. They're going to say this whole thing. Then they're going to say every bag will fertilize 30 square feet, and every bag costs $12.99. So how much will it cost to fertilize this garden? So you're going to have to do a lot more thinking that after you get this, like if every bag fertilizes 30, wouldn't we need 2 bags? Because we need 56. So 30 wouldn't be enough, but 60 would be. So then you'd have to say, okay, I need 2 bags, and then it costs $11.99 a bag, so then I have to times it by 2. So there's a lot more involved, not that you guys can't handle it, but you just got to be ready for that. All right, now it is time to get the worksheet. I hope you enjoyed this lesson, and I hope you understand it. Obviously, you can ask Miss Dollar Shell if you have any questions. Thank you. Have a great day.